My son-in-law was standing in my living room with a financial advisor when he told me they'd already set up meetings with 3 assisted living facilities. Because the jazz club I'd owned for 32 years, the venue generating $28,000 monthly from live performances, private events, and the liquor license, needed to be sold immediately to cover what he called mounting debts and mismanagement. And they'd prepared admission paperwork for Oak Ridge Senior Living, where I'd be safe and cared for, while they cleaned up the financial mess I'd supposedly created. Dorothy, we're not asking permission. We're informing you of the plan. The club is bleeding money, you're underwater. The creditors are circling, you need professional care. This financial advisor has reviewed everything. The recommendation is clear. Sell the club, pay the debts, use what's left for assisted living. Dorothy, you're 75. You've done your best. It's time to let qualified people handle this before you lose everything. I looked at my son-in-law, at Lawrence, 48 years old, married to my daughter Renee for 23 years, always ambitious, always wanting more, always seeing my jazz club as wasted potential. You've reviewed my financial records. The financial advisor, a man named Kenneth Porter, spoke up. Mrs. Morrison, your son-in-law provided comprehensive documentation. The club's operating expenses exceed revenue by approximately $7,000 monthly. Your personal accounts show declining balances. Your credit report shows missed payments. Mrs. Morrison, the numbers don't lie. You're facing financial collapse. Selling now, while the club still has value, is your only option. I've never missed a payment in my life. Lawrence's voice turned sharp. Dorothy, denial is part of the problem. You're not seeing things clearly anymore. The club is failing. You're failing. We're trying to save you from complete financial ruin. Dorothy, you need to stop defending yourself and start accepting reality. The paperwork is ready. Sign it. Let us fix this mess before it destroys you. And if I refuse? Then we pursue guardianship. Dorothy, Renee, and I have already consulted an attorney. We have documentation of your financial mismanagement. We have the advisor's report. We have evidence you're not competent to manage your affairs. Dorothy, you can sign voluntarily and maintain some dignity, or you can fight and we'll get a court to order it. Either way, this is happening. Stop defending yourself. Start accepting help. I looked at my son-in-law, at this man telling me to stop defending myself, at this person who'd somehow accessed my financial records, who'd hired an advisor to evaluate my business, who'd prepared assisted living admission papers, who'd consulted attorneys about guardianship. And I understood something important. This wasn't about helping me. This was about taking my club, about convincing everyone I was failing so they could access an asset they wanted, about framing theft as rescue. I didn't yell, didn't argue about my competence, didn't try to defend my financial management. I just looked at Lawrence and Kenneth, at these men who thought I'd sign away my life's work because they'd manufactured a crisis. Get out of my house, both of you, now. Dorothy, we're trying to help. Get out, or I'm calling the police and reporting trespassing. After they left, I sat in my living room, the room where I'd entertained jazz musicians for decades, hosted celebrations, built community, and I thought about what had just happened. My son-in-law had accessed my financial records, had hired an advisor to create a damaging report, had prepared assisted living admission papers, had consulted attorneys about guardianship, had told me to stop defending myself and accept their plan. They thought I'd comply, thought manufacturing a financial crisis would make me panic, thought telling me not to defend myself would make me doubt my own judgment. That was their first mistake. They thought I was broken, that being told I was failing would make me accept losing everything, that I'd sign documents because they'd decided I should. That was their first mistake. Now listen, before I tell you what happened when my son-in-law decided I was failing and tried to take the jazz club I'd built over 32 years, before I show you what a 75-year-old woman who created a legendary music venue from nothing can do when people think she'll just surrender, I need you to do something. If you're watching this and someone has ever told you to stop defending yourself while they attacked everything you built, hit subscribe right now. Comment where you're from. Because what happened when I didn't defend myself but prepared instead You need to hear every second. Turn on notifications. This goes places Lawrence and Renee never imagined. After they left, I made 8 calls. First, to my accountant, Gloria Chen. Gloria, my son-in-law claims the club is losing $7,000 monthly, that I'm underwater financially, that I've missed payments. Is any of that true? Dorothy, what? No, the club's books are excellent. You're profitable every month. Your personal finances are solid. You've never missed a payment on anything. Where is this coming from? Lawrence hired a financial advisor who supposedly reviewed my records. The advisor says I'm facing financial collapse. Gloria, how did they access my financial information? They shouldn't have access unless you gave it to them. Dorothy, your financial records are confidential. If someone's been accessing them without authorization, that's identity theft. That's fraud. Can you prepare comprehensive documentation? Proving the club is profitable, proving my finances are sound, proving I've never missed payments. Gloria, I need evidence that everything Lawrence claims is false. I'll have it ready by tomorrow. Dorothy, what's happening? They're trying to take my club, claiming I'm incompetent. I need documentation proving they're lying. Second, to my attorney, Marcus Webb. Marcus, my son-in-law and a financial advisor just told me I need to sell my club and move to assisted living due to financial collapse that doesn't exist. They've prepared admission paperwork. They've mentioned guardianship. Marcus, I need protection immediately. Dorothy, do they have any legal authority over your affairs? No, I've never given anyone power of attorney. I've never signed guardianship documents. But Marcus, they've somehow accessed my financial records. They've created a false financial analysis. They're building a case that I'm incompetent. That's attempted fraud, possibly identity theft. Dorothy, we need to document this immediately. Record every interaction. Save every document they provide. Get comprehensive cognitive testing proving you're fully capable. This is serious. I know. Marcus, they told me to stop defending myself, to just accept their plan. They think I'll comply because I'm 75 and they've manufactured evidence of failure. Don't comply, don't sign anything. And Dorothy, get medical documentation immediately. If they pursue guardianship, we need proof you're completely competent. Third, to my physician, Dr. Alicia Freeman. Alicia, I need urgent cognitive testing. My son-in-law is claiming I'm incompetent to manage my business. I need medical proof that I'm fully capable. Dorothy, you were here 3 weeks ago for your annual physical. You were sharp as ever. But yes, come in today. We'll do comprehensive cognitive evaluation and I'll write a detailed report. Thank you. Alicia, this is urgent. They're preparing guardianship papers. I need documentation that can stop them. Fourth, to my bank. This is Dorothy Morrison. I need to verify that no unauthorized access has occurred on my accounts. I believe someone may have accessed my financial information fraudulently. The bank security officer checked. Mrs. Morrison, we show a credit inquiry from Porter Financial Services 3 weeks ago. They requested your credit report and account balances. The inquiry was flagged as potentially fraudulent because we have no authorization on file. We blocked their access, but they did obtain limited information before we caught it. Porter Financial Services, that's the advisor Lawrence hired. They accessed my information without permission. It appears so. Mrs. Morrison, you should file a fraud report immediately. Unauthorized credit inquiries are illegal. I'll file today. Please note my account. Any future inquiries or access attempts should be reported to me immediately and blocked. Fifth, to the Jazz Club's manager, Daniel Washington. Daniel, has anyone contacted you about the club's finances, asked for records, made inquiries about selling? Dorothy, yes. Lawrence called 2 weeks ago. Said you were considering selling and asked for copies of our financial statements. I told him I'd need your written authorization. He said you'd be sending it. I never received authorization, so I didn't provide anything. Should I have told you? Yes, but Daniel, from now on, no information to anyone without my direct written authorization. Not Lawrence, not Renee, not anyone. And Daniel, prepare comprehensive financial statements for the past 5 years, showing profitability, showing success. I need documentation of how well the club performs. Dorothy, is everything okay? It will be, just prepare those statements. I'll explain later. Sixth, to the 3 assisted living facilities Lawrence mentioned. I called each one. The 3rd facility, Oak Ridge Senior Living, confirmed. Yes, Mr. Lawrence Morrison contacted us 3 weeks ago, said his mother-in-law needed immediate placement due to cognitive decline and financial crisis. He requested admission paperwork. We sent it. He said you'd be coming for a tour. Should we still expect you? No, I never authorized Lawrence to inquire about placement. I'm not experiencing cognitive decline. I'm not having a financial crisis. Please note, Lawrence Morrison has no authority regarding my care or placement. Any future inquiries from him should be reported to me directly. 7th, to my goddaughter, Sierra. Sierra, something's happening with Lawrence and Renee. They're claiming I'm failing financially. They're trying to force me into assisted living. They want to sell the club. I need you aware in case they try to build a narrative that I'm incompetent. Aunt Dorothy, that's insane. You run that club brilliantly. You're completely sharp. What's their angle? They want the club. They're manufacturing a crisis to justify taking it. Sierra, I'm gathering documentation proving they're wrong. But I need someone who'll tell the truth if they try to get others to support their claims. I'm here. Aunt Dorothy, you're one of the most capable people I know. Anyone who thinks you're failing is either lying or delusional. What do you need from me? Just be ready. If Lawrence and Renee start calling family saying I need help, I need you to tell people the truth, that I'm fine, the club is fine, and they're manufacturing a crisis. 8th, to a private investigator named Vaughn Cole. Marcus had recommended him. Mr. Cole, I need help investigating how my son-in-law accessed my financial information and whether he's building a systematic case to take my business through fraudulent guardianship. Mrs. Morrison, what kind of information did he access? My credit report, bank account balances, business financial statements. He's hired a financial advisor who created a false analysis claiming I'm failing. He's contacted assisted living facilities. He's prepared admission paperwork. He's told me to stop defending myself and accept his plan. Mr. Cole, this feels coordinated, planned. I need to know what they're really doing. I'll start investigating immediately. Mrs. Morrison, document everything. Save every email, text, document they provide. Record conversations if you're in a one-party consent state. Build a comprehensive file. If this is guardianship fraud, we need extensive evidence. After making the calls, I sat thinking about Lawrence's strategy. He'd accessed my information secretly. He'd hired an advisor to create false analysis. He'd prepared paperwork assuming I'd sign. He'd told me not to defend myself, to just accept reality. It was sophisticated, coordinated, designed to overwhelm me with manufactured urgency. But I had something Lawrence didn't expect. I wasn't defending myself. I was preparing, gathering documentation, building evidence, creating the foundation to destroy his entire scheme. He'd told me not to defend myself. I agreed. I wasn't defending. I was preparing. And that difference would change everything. 2 days after Lawrence's demand, I received the comprehensive documentation I'd requested. Gloria's financial analysis showed the club earning $31,000 monthly, not losing $7,000. My personal finances showed $340,000 in liquid assets, not declining balances. My credit report showed perfect payment history, no missed payments. Everything Lawrence and Kenneth had claimed was false, completely fabricated. Dr. Freeman's cognitive evaluation was equally clear. Patient Dorothy Morrison, age 75, demonstrates excellent cognitive function across all domains. Memory intact, reasoning sharp, judgment sound, mental status completely normal. Patient is fully capable of managing complex business operations and personal affairs. No evidence of decline. I had the documentation notarized, made 20 copies, sent packages to Marcus, Gloria, Sierra, and kept several for myself. Evidence that every claim Lawrence had made was false. Evidence that I was completely competent. Evidence that the financial crisis was manufactured. 3 days after his demand, I was ready for the next phase. I called Marcus. Marcus, I have all the documentation. Lawrence's claims are provably false. What's my next move? We file a cease and desist letter. We document the fraud. We warn Lawrence that any further attempts to access your information or interfere with your business will result in civil and criminal prosecution. Dorothy, we make it clear that you know what he's doing and you're prepared to fight. Marcus drafted the cease and desist letter. It was comprehensive, brutal. Lawrence Morrison, you have fraudulently accessed Dorothy Morrison's financial information without authorization. You have hired a financial advisor who created a false analysis claiming financial collapse that does not exist. You have contacted assisted living facilities without authorization. You have prepared admission paperwork without consent. You have threatened guardianship based on manufactured evidence of incompetence. Dorothy Morrison is fully competent. Her business is profitable. Her finances are sound. Her cognitive function is excellent. Every claim you have made is demonstrably false. Any further attempts to access Dorothy Morrison's financial information, to interfere with her business operations, or to pursue guardianship will result in immediate civil and criminal prosecution for fraud, identity theft, and attempted exploitation. This letter serves as legal notice that your actions are known, documented, and will be prosecuted if continued. The letter was sent by courier, delivered directly to Lawrence, with copies to Renee, Kenneth Porter, and the 3 assisted living facilities. That evening, Lawrence called, furious. Dorothy, you sent me legal threats. I'm your son-in-law. I'm trying to help you and you respond with attorneys. You accessed my financial information without permission. You created false analysis. You contacted facilities without authorization. Lawrence, you started this legal fight. I'm just responding appropriately. I was trying to help before you destroyed yourself. The club is profitable. My finances are sound. My cognitive function is excellent. Lawrence, everything you claimed is false. I have documentation proving it. You weren't trying to help. You were trying to steal my business by manufacturing a crisis. Dorothy, you're being paranoid. I'm being informed. Lawrence, stop all of it, or I will pursue prosecution. I'm not bluffing. You destroy your relationship with Renee, with your grandchildren, over this. You're destroying those relationships by trying to steal from me. Lawrence, I know what you're doing. I know why you're doing it. And I'm prepared to stop you. That's not paranoia. That's protection. After Lawrence hung up, I thought about what I'd just done. I'd threatened my son-in-law with prosecution, sent legal cease and desist letters, responded to his help with attorneys. Part of me felt terrible. He was married to my daughter, father of my grandchildren, family. But a larger part felt clear, because Lawrence had stopped being family when he tried to take my club, when he manufactured evidence of my incompetence, when he told me to stop defending myself while he attacked everything I'd built. I didn't defend myself. I prepared. I prepared documentation. I prepared legal responses. I prepared evidence. I prepared for war. And that preparation was about to change everything. 1 week after the cease and desist letter, Vaughn Cole called with his preliminary findings. Mrs. Morrison, I've been investigating Lawrence Morrison. There's a pattern here you need to know about. What kind of pattern? Lawrence has significant debts. Credit card balances totaling $87,000. A failed business investment that lost $140,000 last year. He's underwater financially. Mrs. Morrison, your son-in-law is drowning in debt. That's what this is really about. He wants my club to cover his debts. Yes, and Mrs. Morrison, there's more. Kenneth Porter. The financial advisor Lawrence hired, he's not independent. He and Lawrence have a business relationship. Porter gets referral fees for finding businesses that need to be sold quickly. Mrs. Morrison, Kenneth Porter was paid by Lawrence to create a false analysis. This wasn't objective financial advice. This was paid fraud. Can we prove that? I'm working on it. But Mrs. Morrison, the pattern is clear. Lawrence has debts. Your club has value. Lawrence manufactured a crisis claiming you're failing. Porter created false documentation supporting that crisis. Together, they built a case for why your club needs to be sold immediately. Mrs. Morrison, this is systematic fraud. This is conspiracy. This is criminal. What do I do? Keep documenting. Keep building evidence. And Mrs. Morrison, don't communicate with Lawrence or Renee directly anymore. Everything through attorneys. They're going to escalate. When people this desperate get blocked, they don't stop. They intensify. 2 weeks after the cease and desist letter, Renee came to visit. First time since Lawrence's demand. She came alone. Mom, we need to talk. About what's happening. About the letters from your attorney. About you accusing Lawrence of fraud. Mom, this has gotten out of control. Lawrence tried to take my club by manufacturing evidence that I'm incompetent. That's fraud. That's what's out of control. Mom, Lawrence was trying to help you. You're 75. The club is a lot of work. Lawrence researched options. He found solutions. You're responding to help with lawyers. Mom, that's not reasonable. The club is profitable. My finances are sound. My cognitive function is excellent. Everything Lawrence claimed is false. Renee, he lied to you. He lied about me. He created a crisis that doesn't exist. Or Mom, you're not seeing things clearly. Maybe you are having problems you don't recognize. Maybe Lawrence is right and you're just defensive. Mom, have you considered that possibility? I looked at my daughter, at Renee, who was choosing to believe Lawrence's lies over her mother's documented truth. Renee, I have cognitive evaluations from Dr. Freeman. I have financial statements from Gloria. I have proof that everything Lawrence claimed is false. Do you want to see the documentation? Or are you committed to believing Lawrence regardless of evidence? Mom, I'm committed to believing my husband, to supporting my family, to doing what's best for everyone. Mom, if you keep fighting Lawrence, you're going to destroy our relationship. Is that what you want? I want you to believe truth over lies. I want you to support your mother over someone trying to steal from her. Renee, Lawrence has $87,000 in credit card debt. He lost $140,000 on a failed investment last year. He's drowning financially. He wants my club to cover his debts. That's what this is really about. That's ridiculous. Lawrence would never. I have documentation, bank records, credit reports, business filings. Renee, your husband is in financial crisis. He's trying to solve it by taking my business. You can believe him or you can look at evidence. Choose. Renee left without looking at the evidence, and I understood something painful. My daughter had chosen. She'd chosen Lawrence. She'd chosen to believe lies. She'd chosen to support theft rather than truth. That hurt more than anything Lawrence had done. 3 weeks after the cease and desist letter, something happened that showed me how much deeper this went. Sierra called. Aunt Dorothy, I need to tell you something. Lawrence has been calling family members, telling them you're declining, that you're refusing help, that you're being irrational about the club. He's building a narrative, systematically, getting people on his side before you even know they've been contacted. Who has he called? Your sister Pauline, your nephew Marcus, several cousins. Aunt Dorothy, he's telling people you're paranoid, that you're accusing him of fraud when he's trying to help, that you need intervention. He's making you sound unstable. What are people saying? Some believe him, some are skeptical, but Aunt Dorothy, he's planting seeds, building a case. If this goes to court for guardianship, he'll have witnesses saying they've been concerned about you, that they think you need help, that Lawrence is trying to provide it. It's sophisticated manipulation. What should I do? Call people directly. Show them the documentation. Prove you're competent. Don't let Lawrence control the narrative. Aunt Dorothy, he's playing a long game. You need to disrupt it now. Over the following week, I contacted every person Lawrence had called. My sister, my nephew, my cousins. I showed them the documentation, the financial statements, the cognitive evaluation, the evidence that Lawrence's claims were false. Some believed me, some didn't. Some had invested so much in Lawrence's narrative that they couldn't accept they'd been manipulated. But enough believed me that the family dynamics shifted. People started questioning Lawrence, started understanding I was the victim, not the problem. 4 weeks after the cease and desist letter, Marcus called with news. Dorothy, Lawrence has hired a guardianship attorney. He's preparing to file a petition claiming you're incompetent to manage your affairs. He's building a formal case. This is happening. When will he file? Probably within 2 weeks. Dorothy, we need to be ready. We need comprehensive documentation. We need witness testimony. We need to prepare for a legal fight. This isn't going away. Lawrence is committed. I'm ready. Marcus, I have everything documented. I have financial proof. I have medical proof. I have evidence of his fraud. I'm prepared. Good, because Dorothy, once that petition is filed, everything becomes public. Your finances, your medical records, your business operations, everything. This becomes a court battle where they'll try to prove you're incompetent and you'll try to prove they're committing fraud. Are you prepared for that level of exposure? Yes, because Marcus, the alternative is losing everything without fighting. I'd rather fight publicly than surrender quietly. 5 weeks after Lawrence's initial demand, I received a certified letter. Legal notice of guardianship petition. Lawrence Morrison seeking appointment as guardian over Dorothy Morrison based on alleged cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. The hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later, and I had 6 weeks to prepare the defense that would determine whether I kept my independence or lost everything. I didn't defend myself that day in my living room when Lawrence told me to stop fighting and accept his plan. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't try to convince him he was wrong. I just said no, then I prepared. I prepared documentation. I prepared legal strategy. I prepared witness testimony. I prepared evidence of his fraud. That preparation was about to face its first real test. A guardianship hearing where Lawrence would try to prove I was incompetent and I would prove he was a fraud. 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks to build the case. 6 weeks to get ready for the fight that would determine everything. I didn't defend myself then. I prepared instead. And that difference, between defending in the moment and preparing for the battle ahead, that was going to change everything. They thought telling me not to defend myself would make me give up, would make me accept their authority, would make me surrender without fighting. They didn't understand that not defending myself didn't mean not fighting back. It meant choosing my battlefield. It meant gathering weapons. It meant preparing systematically for total victory instead of reacting emotionally to immediate attack. I didn't defend myself. I prepared. And in 6 weeks, they'd learn what that preparation had built, what that strategic silence had created, what that patient documentation had accomplished. They thought silence meant surrender. That was their mistake. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The 6 weeks before the guardianship hearing felt like preparing for war, because that's exactly what it was. Marcus set up a war room in his office, documents covering every wall, financial statements, medical evaluations, credit reports showing Lawrence's debts, bank records proving Kenneth Porter's payment from Lawrence, witness lists, evidence catalogs, everything organized and cross-referenced. Dorothy, Lawrence's petition claims you're experiencing cognitive decline, financial mismanagement, and inability to care for yourself. We need to disprove every single claim, comprehensively, definitively. We need the judge to see this isn't about helping you. It's about stealing from you. Over those 6 weeks, I did something I'd never done before. I opened my entire life for documentation, every aspect, every detail, nothing hidden. Dr. Freeman conducted 3 separate cognitive evaluations, memory tests, problem-solving assessments, mental status examinations. Every evaluation showed the same result: excellent cognitive function across all domains. Gloria prepared 5 years of financial records, the club's profitability, my personal account management, investment decisions, tax returns, everything showing careful, successful financial management. Daniel compiled the club's operational records, booking calendars showing sold-out performances, vendor relationships spanning decades, staff retention rates, customer reviews, health department inspections with perfect scores, everything proving the club was thriving under my management. We gathered witness testimony. Sierra prepared a statement about my sharpness and capability. Musicians who'd performed at the club for years prepared statements about my management. Regular customers prepared statements about the club's quality. My sister, Pauline, after seeing the evidence, prepared a statement acknowledging Lawrence had misled her. It was exhaustive, comprehensive, overwhelming in scope. And through it all, I didn't defend myself to Lawrence or Renee. I prepared in silence, building the case while they assumed my silence meant weakness. 3 weeks before the hearing, Vaughn Cole came to Marcus's office with a breakthrough. "Mrs. Morrison, I found something significant. Kenneth Porter has done this before, 3 times in the past 4 years. He's worked with family members to create false financial analyses claiming elderly business owners are failing. In 2 of those cases, the businesses were sold. Porter received finder's fees. The family members paid off debts. The elderly owners ended up in assisted living. Mrs. Morrison, this is Porter's business model. This is systematic exploitation." "Can we prove it?" "I have documentation on all 3 cases. I've contacted 2 of the victims. They're willing to testify about Porter's fraud. Mrs. Morrison, we can show this isn't about you failing. This is about Porter and Lawrence running a scheme they've run before. This is their pattern." Marcus immediately added the pattern evidence to our case. "Dorothy, this changes everything. We're not just defending against guardianship. We're exposing systematic fraud. We're showing Lawrence and Porter targeted you deliberately using methods they've refined over years. The judge needs to see this." 2 weeks before the hearing, something happened that showed me how desperate Lawrence had become. Someone attempted to break into the jazz club at 3 a.m. The security system caught everything. A man trying to force the back door, looking for something specific. Not random theft, targeted searching. The police caught him 2 blocks away. When questioned, he admitted Lawrence had hired him, paid him $500 to break in and steal financial records. Specifically, records that might contradict the failing business narrative Lawrence had built. "Mrs. Morrison," the police officer told me, "your son-in-law committed a crime, hired someone to break into your business. We're filing charges, breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit theft. Mrs. Morrison, this is serious." I filed a police report immediately, added it to the guardianship evidence. Proof that Lawrence wasn't just manipulating records, he was actively trying to destroy evidence that contradicted his claims. Marcus was stunned. "Dorothy, Lawrence just gave us the case. He hired someone to steal evidence. That shows consciousness of guilt. Shows he knows his claims are false and he's trying to cover it up. The judge is going to see this." 1 week before the hearing, Renee came to see me again, unannounced, looking devastated. "Mom, I found something in Lawrence's office. Financial records, credit card statements, business documents. Mom, you were right. Lawrence has massive debts, almost $90,000. He lost $140,000 on a business investment. Mom, he lied to me about everything." "I know. You tried to tell me. You showed me evidence. I didn't believe you. Mom, I chose Lawrence over you. I chose to believe his lies. I'm so sorry." "Renee, why are you here now? What changed?" "I found emails between Lawrence and Kenneth Porter. Planning this, Mom, they had a whole strategy. Kenneth would create the false financial analysis. Lawrence would present it as objective advice. Together, they'd convince you to sell. Kenneth would get a finder's fee. Lawrence would use the money to pay his debts. Mom, they planned this for months, and I believed Lawrence when he said he was helping you. I'm so sorry." "Do you have copies of those emails?" "Yes, I took photos of everything. Mom, I'll testify against Lawrence in the guardianship hearing. I'll tell the judge what I found, what Lawrence planned. Mom, I won't let him steal from you, not anymore." I looked at my daughter, at Renee, who'd finally seen the truth, who was offering to testify against her own husband. "Renee, if you testify against Lawrence, your marriage is over. You understand that?" My marriage was over the moment he tried to steal from my mother. I just didn't know it yet. "Mom, I chose wrong. I'm choosing right now. I'll testify, whatever you need." I gave the emails to Marcus immediately. He added them to evidence, scheduled Renee as a witness. Dorothy, Lawrence's wife, testifying against him. That's devastating. Combined with everything else, this case is over before it starts. Lawrence is finished. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the jazz club after hours. The empty stage, the silent room, 32 years of memories, hundreds of performances, thousands of people who'd experienced music in this space. Everything I'd built, everything Lawrence had tried to take, everything I'd fought to protect. I thought about the past 6 weeks, the preparation, the documentation, the silence while I built my case. I hadn't defended myself when Lawrence demanded I sign papers. I'd prepared instead. And that preparation had created something Lawrence never anticipated. Complete, comprehensive, overwhelming evidence that destroyed every claim he'd made. Tomorrow, the judge would see it. Tomorrow, Lawrence would face consequences. Tomorrow, everything would change. The guardianship hearing was in a small courtroom. Lawrence sat with his attorney, a man named Gerald Finch who looked expensive and confident. Kenneth Porter sat behind them, supporting witness. I sat with Marcus. Renee sat with us, on my side, against her husband. The judge reviewed the petition. "Mr. Morrison, you're seeking guardianship over your mother-in-law, Dorothy Morrison. You claim she's experiencing cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. You claim she's unable to manage her jazz club business. Let's hear your evidence." Lawrence's attorney presented first. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison is 75 years old. She's operated the Blue Note Jazz Club for 32 years. But recently, she's shown signs of decline, financial mismanagement, confusion, inability to recognize mounting debts. We have a financial analysis from Kenneth Porter showing the business losing $7,000 monthly. We have documentation of declining personal finances. Your Honor, Mr. Morrison is trying to help his mother-in-law before financial collapse destroys everything she's built." Kenneth Porter testified next. "I reviewed Mrs. Morrison's financial records. The club's operating expenses exceed revenue significantly. Her personal accounts show declining balances. Her credit report shows concerning patterns. Based on comprehensive analysis, my professional recommendation was immediate intervention. Sell the club while it has value. Use proceeds to secure professional care. This is standard practice for elderly business owners experiencing decline." Then came character witnesses Lawrence had assembled. My nephew who'd believed Lawrence's claims. A cousin who thought I seemed confused at a family gathering. A neighbor who said the club seemed noisy and chaotic lately. It was systematic, coordinated, building a narrative of decline and mismanagement. Then Marcus stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to present our evidence. Every claim Mr. Morrison has made is demonstrably false. Mrs. Morrison is not declining. Her business is not failing. This is not about helping her. This is about stealing from her, and we can prove it." We started with Dr. Freeman's testimony. 3 separate cognitive evaluations. "Your Honor, I've examined Mrs. Morrison comprehensively. Her cognitive function is excellent. Memory intact across all domains. Reasoning sharp. Judgment sound. Mental status completely normal. There is zero evidence of decline. Mrs. Morrison is fully capable of managing complex business operations and personal affairs. Any claim to the contrary is false." Then Gloria testified. "Your Honor, I'm Mrs. Morrison's accountant. I've managed her business and personal finances for 12 years. The Blue Note Jazz Club is profitable. It generates approximately $31,000 monthly. Operating expenses are approximately $18,000 monthly. Net profit, $13,000 monthly. Mrs. Morrison's personal finances show $340,000 in liquid assets. Her credit score is 802. She has never missed a payment on anything. Your Honor, the claim that Mrs. Morrison is failing financially is completely false. Her financial management is exemplary. Marcus presented side-by-side comparisons. Kenneth Porter's analysis claiming $7,000 monthly losses. Gloria's analysis proving $13,000 monthly profits. Kenneth's claim of declining personal accounts. Gloria's documentation of $340,000 in assets. Kenneth's implication of missed payments. Gloria's proof of perfect payment history. Your Honor, Kenneth Porter's analysis is fraudulent. Every number is false. Every claim is manufactured. This isn't objective financial advice. This is paid fraud designed to justify theft. Then Von Cole testified about Porter's pattern. Your Honor, Kenneth Porter has done this 3 times before. Created false financial analyses claiming elderly business owners are failing. Worked with family members to pressure sales. Received finder's fees when businesses sold. Your Honor, this is Mr. Porter's business model. This is systematic exploitation. Mrs. Morrison is victim number 4. Marcus presented documentation on Porter's previous victims, their testimony about Porter's fraud, evidence of the pattern. Your Honor, this isn't about Mrs. Morrison declining. This is about Lawrence Morrison and Kenneth Porter running a scheme they've successfully run before, a scheme Mrs. Morrison recognized and stopped. Then Marcus dropped the biggest evidence. Your Honor, we need to address Mr. Morrison's financial situation, because that's what this is really about. He presented Lawrence's credit card statements, $87,000 in debt, his failed business investment, $140,000 loss, documentation of Lawrence's financial desperation. Your Honor, Lawrence Morrison is drowning in debt. He saw his mother-in-law's successful business as his solution. He hired Kenneth Porter to create false analysis. Together, they manufactured a crisis justifying immediate sale. Lawrence would pay his debts. Porter would get his finder's fee. Mrs. Morrison would lose everything. Your Honor, this is systematic fraud motivated by Lawrence Morrison's desperate financial situation. The judge's expression changed, from neutral to concerned, from listening to understanding. Then Marcus presented the break-in evidence. Your Honor, 1 week ago, Lawrence Morrison hired someone to break into the Blue Note Jazz Club to steal financial records, specifically records that would contradict his claims of business failure. The perpetrator was caught. He confessed. Lawrence Morrison is facing criminal charges for conspiracy to commit theft. Your Honor, this shows consciousness of guilt. Lawrence Morrison knew his claims were false. He tried to destroy evidence proving it. Finally, Renee testified, my daughter, against her husband. Your Honor, I'm Dorothy Morrison's daughter. I'm married to Lawrence Morrison. 3 days ago, I found emails between my husband and Kenneth Porter, planning this scheme. Your Honor, they discussed strategy, how to convince my mother the business was failing, how to pressure her to sell, how to split the proceeds, Kenneth getting his finder's fee, Lawrence using the rest to pay his debts. Your Honor, they planned this for months. This isn't about helping my mother. This is about stealing from her. And I won't support it. I'm testifying to stop it. Renee presented the emails. Marcus entered them as evidence. Gerald Finch objected. The judge overruled. I'm allowing the emails. This goes to motive, to intent. The court needs to see this. After all the evidence, the judge took a 30-minute recess. When he returned, his decision was clear. I've reviewed the evidence comprehensively. This is one of the most troubling cases I've seen. Mr. Morrison, you petitioned for guardianship claiming your mother-in-law is experiencing cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. The evidence shows both claims are completely false. Mrs. Morrison's cognitive function is excellent. 3 separate medical evaluations confirm it. Her business is profitable, generating $13,000 monthly, not losing $7,000 as claimed. Her personal finances are sound. $340,000 in assets, perfect credit, 0 missed payments. More troubling, the evidence shows you manufactured this crisis deliberately. You hired Kenneth Porter, who has a documented pattern of creating false financial analyses for elderly exploitation. You attempted to break into Mrs. Morrison's business to steal evidence. You lied to your wife. You lied to family members. You built a systematic campaign to steal your mother-in-law's business by claiming she's incompetent when she's clearly not. This isn't guardianship. This is fraud. This is exploitation. This is elder abuse. The guardianship petition is denied with prejudice. Mr. Morrison is prohibited from any further attempts to access Mrs. Morrison's financial information, business operations, or personal affairs. I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution, fraud, attempted theft, conspiracy, elder abuse. And Mr. Morrison, you should know, Mrs. Morrison had every right to fight this. She had every right to defend herself, but she didn't defend herself. She prepared. She documented. She built a case so comprehensive that you never had a chance. That's not incompetence. That's intelligence. That's strategic thinking you clearly underestimated. Court is adjourned. After the hearing, Lawrence tried to approach me. Marcus blocked him. She doesn't want to speak with you. Dorothy, please, I made mistakes. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You tried to steal my business. You manufactured evidence. You lied about me. Lawrence, you destroyed our relationship. I just protected myself. There's nothing left to say. I walked away, and I didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Renee found me. Mom, I'm so sorry for believing Lawrence, for choosing him over you, for not seeing what was happening until it was almost too late. What are you going to do, Renee? I'm filing for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who tried to steal from my mother, who lied to me for months, who used me as part of his scheme. Mom, my marriage is over, but our relationship, can we fix it? I don't know. Renee, you chose Lawrence over me even when I showed you evidence. You believed his lies. That hurt. I know. Mom, I'll spend however long it takes proving I've learned, proving I'll choose truth over comfort, proving I won't make that mistake again. Will you give me that chance? Maybe. Time will tell. Renee, words are easy. Behavior over time is hard. Show me through actions. That's the only way forward. 2 weeks after the hearing, the district attorney filed criminal charges. Lawrence Morrison, fraud, attempted theft, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, conspiracy to commit breaking and entering. Kenneth Porter, fraud, conspiracy, operating a scheme to defraud vulnerable adults. If convicted, Lawrence faced up to 7 years. Porter faced up to 12. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. 3 weeks after the hearing, something unexpected happened. 2 of Kenneth Porter's previous victims contacted me, elderly business owners who'd been pressured to sell through Porter's false analyses. Mrs. Morrison, we read about your case, about how you fought back. Mrs. Morrison, we didn't fight. We believed Porter's analysis. We sold our businesses. We regret it every day. Can we testify in the criminal trial? Can we help prosecute Porter for what he did to us and what he tried to do to you? I connected them with the district attorney immediately. Their testimony would strengthen the pattern evidence, would show Porter's systematic exploitation, would help ensure convictions. 1 month after the hearing, Renee moved out of the house she'd shared with Lawrence, filed for divorce, moved into a small apartment, started rebuilding her life. She called me weekly, asking nothing, just talking, updating me on her life, slowly trying to rebuild connection. I was cautious, but I listened. That was something. 6 weeks after the hearing, I received a letter from my nephew who'd testified for Lawrence, who'd said he thought I was declining. Aunt Dorothy, I need to apologize. Lawrence told me you were failing. Showed me Kenneth Porter's financial analysis. I believed him. I testified for him. I was wrong about everything. After the hearing, I read the evidence. I saw how comprehensively Lawrence lied, how systematically he built false claims. Aunt Dorothy, I should have verified independently before testifying. I should have trusted you over Lawrence. I didn't. I'm sorry. I understand if you don't want a relationship with me anymore. I testified against you based on lies. That's unforgivable. But Aunt Dorothy, I needed you to know I was wrong. You were right, and I'll never make that mistake again. I wrote back, thank you for the apology, I accept it. But like I told Renee, words are easy. Behavior over time is hard. If you want to rebuild relationships, show me through actions over years. That's the only path forward. 2 months after the hearing, the Blue Note Jazz Club celebrated its 33rd anniversary. I threw a massive party. Musicians who'd performed there for decades came back. Customers who'd been coming for years celebrated. Sierra, Daniel, Gloria, Marcus, Dr. Freeman, everyone who'd helped me fight, all there. Renee came too. I'd invited her, cautiously. During the party, Daniel gave a toast. To Dorothy Morrison, who was told she was failing, who was told to stop defending herself, who prepared instead of defending, who built a case so complete that her attackers never had a chance. Dorothy, you taught us all something important. That silence isn't weakness. That preparation is power. That choosing your battlefield is strategic genius. To Dorothy, who didn't defend herself but prepared instead. And that changed everything. Everyone raised their glasses. To the club, to victory, to preparation over defense. 3 months after the hearing, Lawrence's attorney reached out to Marcus. We'd like to discuss a plea deal. Mr. Morrison is willing to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for probation and restitution. No prison time. Marcus consulted me. Dorothy, Lawrence would plead guilty to attempted fraud and conspiracy. 3 years probation. $50,000 restitution for your legal fees and damages. Prohibition from ever contesting your estate or having contact regarding business matters. He'd avoid prison. What do you think? What about Porter? Porter is refusing to plead. He's going to trial. Thinks he can beat the charges. But Dorothy, with Lawrence's plea, we have stronger evidence against Porter. Lawrence would have to testify about their conspiracy. That helps convict Porter. I thought about whether Lawrence should go to prison, about whether probation was enough. I'll accept the plea deal on one condition. Lawrence writes a full confession, admitting what he planned, acknowledging he lied about my competence, admitting he and Porter conspired to defraud me, apologizing not for getting caught but for doing it. I want it written. Signed, part of the court record. Lawrence agreed. His confession arrived 1 week later, 3 pages. I, Lawrence Morrison, acknowledge that I conspired with Kenneth Porter to defraud my mother-in-law, Dorothy Morrison. We planned for 3 months. Porter would create a false financial analysis claiming her business was failing. I would use that analysis to pressure her to sell. We would split proceeds, Porter getting his finder's fee, me using the money to pay my debts. I lied to my wife. I lied to family members. I told people Dorothy was declining when she wasn't. I manufactured a crisis that didn't exist. I hired someone to break into her business to steal evidence. I filed a fraudulent guardianship petition claiming she was incompetent when she's clearly not. Dorothy Morrison is completely competent. She runs her business successfully. She manages finances excellently. She has sharp cognitive function. Everything I claimed about her declining was false, manufactured, designed to justify theft. I told Dorothy to stop defending herself and accept my plan. She didn't defend herself. She prepared instead. She documented everything. She built a case that exposed every lie I told. Dorothy didn't react emotionally. She responded strategically. That's intelligence I completely underestimated. I am accepting this plea deal because I am guilty, not because of legal strategy, because I committed crimes against someone who raised my wife. Someone who welcomed me into her family. Someone I tried to exploit when she was vulnerable. I destroyed my marriage through these choices. I destroyed family relationships. I'm facing criminal conviction. All because I tried to steal from someone smarter, more strategic, and more prepared than I ever understood. Dorothy was right to fight back, right to expose me, right to prosecute me. I destroyed everything through my choices. She just refused to enable those choices. I read Lawrence's confession twice, him finally admitting everything, finally acknowledging the full scope of what he'd tried to do. It didn't repair our relationship, but it documented truth, and that mattered. The plea deal was finalized 3 weeks later. Lawrence pleaded guilty, 3 years probation, $50,000 restitution, permanent prohibition from involvement in my affairs. At the plea hearing, the judge addressed Lawrence directly. Mr. Morrison, you targeted a 75-year-old woman. You manufactured evidence of incompetence. You conspired with a known fraud to steal her business. You lied to your own wife. You hired someone to break into her property. This is among the most calculated elder abuse cases I've seen. You're receiving probation only because Mrs. Morrison agreed to it. If she demanded prison, you'd be going. Remember that. Your mother-in-law showed you mercy you didn't deserve. Don't waste it. After the plea hearing, I stood in the courthouse hallway. Lawrence was at the other end with his attorney. He looked at me once. His expression was pure regret. I felt nothing, not anger, not satisfaction, not vindication, just completion. He'd faced consequences. I'd protected what mattered. That was enough. Kenneth Porter's trial was scheduled for 2 months later, and I knew I'd have to testify, face Porter in court, tell my story publicly one more time. But I was ready, because I hadn't just defended myself. I'd prepared, comprehensively, systematically, and that preparation had built something Lawrence and Porter never anticipated. Complete victory, total protection, permanent consequences for people who'd tried to exploit me. They told me not to defend myself, to accept their plan, to surrender quietly. I agreed not to defend myself. Then I prepared instead, and that preparation destroyed them completely while saving everything that mattered. That was the difference between defending and preparing, between reacting and planning, between emotional response and strategic action. I didn't defend myself, I prepared. And that changed everything. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Kenneth Porter's trial began 4 months after Lawrence's plea deal. The courtroom was packed. Porter's previous victims, media covering the case, prosecutors building a comprehensive case against systematic elder exploitation. The lead prosecutor, District Attorney Angela Torres, laid out the case in opening statements. Kenneth Porter has made a career of exploiting elderly business owners. He creates false financial analyses claiming successful businesses are failing. He pressures owners to sell immediately. He collects finder's fees. In the past 5 years, he's targeted at least 6 elderly people using these methods. Dorothy Morrison is unique in only one way. She's the only one who recognized the fraud and fought back successfully. Over 3 days, prosecutors presented Porter's pattern. Financial analyses from previous cases, all showing the same false claims of failure. Testimony from victims who'd believed Porter and sold their businesses. Documentation of Porter's finder's fees totaling over $340,000 across 5 years. Bank records showing payments from family members who benefited from forced sales. It was systematic, professional, devastating. Then I testified, walking through everything. Porter's false analysis of my club, his claims of $7,000 monthly losses when the reality was $13,000 monthly profits, his pressure to sell immediately, his coordination with Lawrence. Mrs. Morrison, Angela Torres asked, when Mr. Porter and your son-in-law presented their analysis, what did you think? I thought they were lying. The numbers were completely wrong. My accountant had just closed the books for that quarter. I knew exactly what the club earned and spent. Porter's analysis bore no relationship to reality, so I didn't defend myself against their claims. I prepared evidence proving they were false. Why didn't you defend yourself? Because defending myself would have meant arguing with them about numbers, trying to convince them they were wrong. That wastes energy and shows your evidence before you're ready. Instead, I gathered comprehensive documentation, built a complete case. Let them think their lies were working, while I prepared to destroy their entire scheme. And what happened when you presented that evidence? They had no response because you can't argue with truth. Porter created false analysis showing losses. I presented real financial statements showing profits. Porter claimed I was failing. I presented medical evaluations proving competence. Porter and Lawrence built their case on lies. I built mine on documentation. Truth won. Preparation won. Strategic silence won. Porter's attorney, a woman named Michelle Drake, cross-examined aggressively. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it possible you misunderstood Mr. Porter's analysis, that you interpreted caution as criticism? No, Porter claimed the club lost $7,000 monthly. The club earned $13,000 monthly. That's not misunderstanding. That's fabrication. But Mrs. Morrison, you're 76 now. Isn't it possible your memory of your finances isn't as accurate as you believe? I have cognitive evaluations from 3 separate examinations proving my memory is excellent. I have financial statements prepared by my accountant confirming every number. My memory isn't the question. Porter's honesty is. Mrs. Morrison, you seem very adversarial toward Mr. Porter. I'm factual about Mr. Porter. He created false analysis to justify stealing my business. That's not adversarial. That's accurate. Michelle Drake had no effective response. The evidence was too comprehensive. The documentation too complete. After my testimony, 2 of Porter's previous victims testified. An 82-year-old man who'd owned a successful restaurant. Porter convinced him the business was failing. He sold. Regretted it immediately. A 77-year-old woman who'd owned a bookstore. Porter created false analysis. She sold under pressure. Discovered later the business was actually profitable. Both victims broke down on the stand, describing the regret, the loss, the realization they'd been manipulated. Mrs. Morrison fought back, the restaurant owner said. I wish I had. I wish I'd prepared like she did instead of believing Porter's lies. But I didn't know. I trusted him, and I lost everything. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Found Porter guilty on all counts. Fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, operating a scheme to defraud vulnerable adults, 6 counts of theft by deception. Sentencing was scheduled for 4 weeks later. At sentencing, the judge addressed Porter directly. Mr. Porter, you made a career of exploiting vulnerable people. You targeted elderly business owners systematically. You created false analyses designed to manufacture crises. You pressured people to make desperate decisions. You collected fees while destroying lives. 6 victims have testified about your fraud. 1 victim, Dorothy Morrison, fought back and exposed you. That's the only reason you're standing here facing justice. If Mrs. Morrison hadn't been strong enough, smart enough, and strategic enough to recognize your fraud and document it comprehensively, you'd still be running your scheme. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison. You'll serve at least 10 before parole eligibility. Mr. Porter, you spent 5 years destroying elderly people's lives. You'll spend the next decade learning that actions have consequences. Porter showed no emotion as he was led away, just looked at me once. And in that look, I saw something unexpected, not hatred, respect tinged with fear. He'd targeted dozens of elderly people. I was the first who'd recognized his fraud, the first who'd prepared instead of defended, the first who'd built a case that sent him to prison. He'd underestimated me, and that underestimation cost him everything. 6 months after Porter's sentencing, Renee's divorce from Lawrence was finalized. She'd been living separately, rebuilding her life, working as a teacher, seeing a therapist, processing everything that had happened. She called me after the divorce was final. Mom, it's done. I'm officially divorced. I'm starting over completely. And Mom, I wanted to ask, can we rebuild? Not immediately, not rushing, just slowly, carefully. Can I earn back your trust? I don't know, Renee. You chose Lawrence over me even when I showed you evidence. You believed his lies. You testified for him at first. That hurt in ways that don't just heal because you've divorced him. I know, Mom, I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance, over years, to show you I've learned, to prove I'll choose truth over comfort now. Mom, can I have that chance? You can have presence. We can have contact. But Renee, trust requires years of consistent behavior. Requires you proving through actions that you've genuinely changed. I'll give you opportunity. Whether you build trust from that depends on you. Thank you, Mom. I'll spend however long it takes. Not to get anything from you, just to have my mother back. That's what I lost. That's what I'm trying to rebuild. Over the following months, Renee visited regularly. She came to the jazz club, helped with events, spent time just being present, not asking for anything, not pushing for faster reconciliation, just slowly rebuilding connection. It was cautious, Careful, but it was something. 1 year after Porter's sentencing, I was 77 when something unexpected happened. A journalist named Michael Chen contacted me. He was writing a book about elder financial exploitation. He wanted to feature my story. Mrs. Morrison, what you did, recognizing the fraud, preparing comprehensively, exposing systematic exploitation, that's exactly what I'm trying to teach people. Your case shows how elderly people can protect themselves, how preparation defeats manipulation. Would you let me tell your story? I agreed. Over 6 months, Michael interviewed me extensively, reviewed all the court documents, interviewed Marcus, Gloria, Dr. Freeman, the prosecutors, built a comprehensive account of everything that had happened. The book published 18 months later. Prepared, not defeated, how Dorothy Morrison exposed systematic elder exploitation. It became a bestseller. Elderly people across the country read it, recognized similar patterns in their own lives, learned to document, to prepare, to build cases instead of defending emotionally. I started receiving letters, hundreds of them, from elderly people who'd recognized exploitation attempts, who'd used my methods to protect themselves, who'd prepared instead of defended. One letter particularly stood out, from a woman named Catherine Lopez. Mrs. Morrison, I'm 79. 6 months ago, my nephew told me I needed to sell my antique store because I was getting too old to manage it. He had a buyer ready. He pressured me to sign quickly. I read your book. I recognized the pattern. I didn't defend myself. I prepared instead. I got cognitive testing. I got financial analysis from my accountant. I documented my nephew's pressure campaign. When he pushed harder, I had comprehensive evidence showing I was completely competent and the business was successful. He backed down immediately, realized I'd documented everything, realized I'd seen through his manipulation. Mrs. Morrison, your story saved my business, saved my independence, taught me that being 79 doesn't mean being vulnerable. It means having experience, wisdom, and strategic thinking that younger people often underestimate. Thank you for fighting back, for documenting your fight, for teaching thousands of us that we can protect ourselves. Catherine Lopez. I received hundreds of letters like Catherine's, each one representing someone who'd learned to prepare instead of defend, who'd used my methods to protect themselves, who'd turned my experience into their education. Lawrence and Porter's attempt to exploit me had become a blueprint for protection that saved thousands. 2 years after Porter's sentencing, I was 78 when I did something I'd been considering for months. I established the Morrison Defense Fund, a nonprofit providing free legal assistance, financial consulting, and cognitive evaluation services to elderly people facing exploitation. I funded it with $500,000 from my own assets, set up partnerships with attorneys like Marcus, accountants like Gloria, physicians like Dr. Freeman, created a network providing comprehensive support. The goal, I explained at the launch event, is helping elderly people prepare, not just defend. We provide documentation services, evidence-gathering support, expert testimony. Everything I had access to, we make it available to people who might not otherwise afford it. We turn individual preparation into systematic protection. The fund helped 60 people in its first year. By the second year, over 200, each one learning to prepare instead of defend, each one protecting themselves using methods I'd pioneered. 3 years after Porter's sentencing, Renee had been consistently present for 36 months, weekly visits, regular contact, never asking for money or business information, just rebuilding relationship through presence. One afternoon, she asked me something direct. Mom, will I ever be in your will again? Will I ever inherit the club? I don't know. Renee, you chose Lawrence over me when he was trying to steal. That showed judgment I can't ignore. Right now, everything goes to Sierra and the Morrison Defense Fund. Whether you're ever added back depends on years more of proving you've genuinely changed. Renee, 3 years of good behavior doesn't erase initially choosing wrong. It's a start, not completion. I understand. Mom, I'm not asking you to change your will. I'm just asking, is there a path, or am I permanently excluded? There's a path, but it's measured in years, not months. Keep being present. Keep proving your judgment has improved. Keep showing me you'd choose truth over comfort now. If you do that consistently for 5 more years, maybe 10, we'll revisit. That's all I can offer. That's enough. Mom, I'll keep proving it, however long it takes. 4 years after Porter's sentencing, something happened that brought everything full circle. Lawrence reached out, through Marcus, not to me directly. Marcus, can you tell Mrs. Morrison I've completed my probation? I've paid the full restitution. I've stayed away from her and the club completely. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted her to know I did everything the court required. And more, I've been in therapy. I've rebuilt my finances honestly. I've faced what I did. Marcus, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just acknowledging Mrs. Morrison was right about everything. I was wrong about everything. And I'm spending my life living differently because of the consequences she forced me to face. Marcus relayed the message. Dorothy, what do you want me to tell him? Tell him I acknowledge he's completed his obligations, that I'm glad he's living differently, but that will never have a relationship. That bridge is permanently burned. He can live well, but he'll do it without me in his life. That's consequence. That's permanent. Marcus delivered the message. Lawrence accepted it, and that was the end of our contact. 5 years after Porter's sentencing, I was 80 years old when the Blue Note Jazz Club celebrated its 38th anniversary. Nearly 4 decades of music, of community, of success. At the anniversary celebration, I gave a speech about everything that had happened. 5 years ago, my son-in-law tried to steal this club. He manufactured evidence that it was failing. He claimed I was incompetent. He told me to stop defending myself and accept his plan. I didn't defend myself. I prepared instead. I gathered documentation. I built comprehensive evidence. I let them think their lies were working while I systematically constructed the case that would destroy them. That preparation changed everything. It saved the club. It exposed systematic fraud. It sent a predator to prison. It protected my independence. It created educational materials that have helped thousands. I'm 80 years old. I'm still running this club successfully. I'm still sharp. I'm still strategic. I'm still here because I understood something important. Defending yourself in the moment wastes energy. Preparing systematically builds power. When someone tells you to stop defending yourself, they're trying to neutralize you. Don't defend. Prepare. Document everything. Build your case. Strike when you're ready, not when they're pushing. That's what I did. That's what saved everything. That's what I'm teaching others to do. Don't defend yourself. Prepare instead. And let that preparation change everything. The crowd applauded. Musicians, customers, Sierra, Daniel, Gloria, Marcus, Renee, everyone who'd been part of the journey. After the speech, Sierra found me. Aunt Dorothy, you've done something remarkable. You turned attempted theft into education for thousands. You turned your experience into protection for others. You built something lasting from something terrible. That's legacy. The legacy isn't the fund or the book. It's the principle. Prepare instead of defend. Document instead of argue. Build power instead of reacting emotionally. Sierra, that principle works because it transforms how we think about protection. It makes us strategic instead of reactive. Will you ever write another book, teaching more people? Maybe. I have more to say, more lessons from this experience, more ways to help people protect themselves. Sierra, as long as I'm capable, I'll keep teaching, because every person who learns to prepare is one less person vulnerable to exploitation. 6 years after Porter's sentencing, I received news that brought closure I hadn't expected. Porter died in prison. Heart attack. Age 59. 6 years into his 12-year sentence. He'd never be released. Never run his scheme again. Never exploit another elderly person. Part of me felt something. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just completion. The threat was gone. Permanently. I didn't celebrate his death, but I acknowledged it meant something. No more victims. No more exploitation. No more systematic fraud designed to steal from vulnerable people. Porter had built a career exploiting elderly people. He'd targeted dozens, succeeded with most, failed with one, me, and that one failure exposed him, ended his career, and ultimately ended his life. I'd prepared instead of defended, and that preparation had stopped him permanently. 7 years after Porter's sentencing, Renee had been consistently present for 7 years. She'd proven her judgment had improved. She'd chosen truth over comfort repeatedly. She'd supported me without asking for anything. I called her one afternoon. "Renee, I'm updating my will. I'm adding you back, not as primary beneficiary, but as partial heir. You'll inherit 30% of the club. Sierra gets 40%. The Morrison Defense Fund gets 30%. Renee, you've spent 7 years proving you've changed. That's worth acknowledging." Renee started crying. "Mom, thank you, not for the inheritance, for believing I've changed. That means everything." "You earned it. Renee, 7 years of consistent behavior. 7 years of choosing right. 7 years of being present without asking for anything. That's what rebuilding trust requires. You did it. That's worth recognition." "I won't let you down. Mom, I promise." "Don't promise, just keep doing what you've been doing. Consistency, honesty, presence, that's all I need." 8 years after Porter's sentencing, the Morrison Defense Fund celebrated its 5th anniversary. We'd helped over 800 people, prevented estimated exploitation totaling $14 million, prosecuted 12 exploiters using evidence we'd helped victims gather. At the anniversary event, one of the people we'd helped spoke, an 81-year-old man named Harold Bennett. "2 years ago, my daughter told me I needed to sell my pharmacy, said I was too old, said the business was failing, said she'd found a buyer, pressured me to sign quickly. I called the Morrison Defense Fund. They connected me with an attorney, an accountant, a physician. In 3 weeks, I had comprehensive documentation proving I was competent and the pharmacy was successful. When I presented the evidence, my daughter backed down immediately. Realized I'd documented everything. Realized I'd prepared. Mrs. Morrison's principle, prepare instead of defend, that saved my business, saved my independence, saved my relationship with my daughter, who eventually admitted she'd been pressured by her husband's debts. Mrs. Morrison, you turned your experience into education, your pain into protection, your personal battle into systematic help for thousands. That's extraordinary." After Harold finished, I thought about the journey, from Lawrence's initial attack to this moment, from one person protecting herself to thousands learning those methods, from personal battle to widespread education. I hadn't just defended myself 8 years ago, I'd prepared, and that preparation had created ripples I couldn't have imagined. Protection for thousands, prosecution for exploiters, education for generations. That was the power of preparation, not just individual victory, systematic change. 9 years after Porter's sentencing, I was 84 years old when I made a significant decision. I was ready to retire, not because I couldn't run the club, but because I'd built something I could pass on properly. I called Sierra. "I'm retiring. I'm transferring active management of the Blue Note to you. You've been helping run it for years. You know the business. You understand the community. Sierra, it's yours now. I'll be available for advice, but the daily operations, that's you." "Aunt Dorothy, are you sure?" "Yes, I'm 84. I've run this club for 40 years. I've fought for it, protected it, built it into something lasting. Sierra, now it's time to let the next generation lead. You're ready. The club is ready. I'm ready." The transition happened over 6 months. Sierra taking on more responsibility, me stepping back gradually. By my 85th birthday, Sierra was running everything. I was officially retired. At the retirement party, Marcus gave a toast. To Dorothy Morrison, who was told she was failing, who was told to stop defending herself, who prepared instead of defending, who built evidence so comprehensive that her attackers never had a chance. Dorothy, you taught us that preparation is power, that strategic silence is strength, that choosing your battlefield is genius. You didn't just save your club. You changed how thousands of people protect themselves. That's legacy. That's victory. That's what it means to prepare instead of defend. Everyone raised their glasses. to preparation, to strategic thinking, to the power of documentation over emotional defense. 10 years after Porter's sentencing, I was 85 years old when I received a letter that brought everything to a final point. From Lawrence, first contact in over 9 years. Dorothy, I'm writing because I've spent 10 years thinking about what happened, about what I tried to do, about how you stopped me. I tried to steal your club by manufacturing evidence you were failing. You didn't defend yourself against my claims. You prepared comprehensive documentation proving they were false. That preparation destroyed me completely while saving everything you'd built. I spent 10 years understanding why that worked, why my scheme failed when I thought it was sophisticated, why you won so decisively. The answer is simple. I attacked emotionally, expecting emotional defense. You responded strategically with documented evidence. I played a game of immediate manipulation. You played a game of systematic preparation. I thought winning meant convincing you quickly. You knew winning meant building a case carefully. Dorothy, you were always 3 steps ahead. While I thought I was manipulating you, you were documenting me. While I thought silence meant weakness, you were building overwhelming evidence. While I thought I was winning, you were preparing total victory. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I destroyed that possibility 10 years ago. I'm just acknowledging what I've finally understood. You didn't just beat me, you taught me. You showed me that preparation defeats manipulation, that documentation defeats lies, that strategic patience defeats immediate pressure. I've spent 10 years rebuilding my life using those principles, living honestly, planning carefully, building legitimately instead of scheming fraudulently. Dorothy, the consequences you forced me to face taught me how to live properly. Thank you for being strong enough to stop me, smart enough to document everything, strategic enough to prepare instead of defend. Without those consequences, I'd have kept destroying people. Now I'm trying to build something real. You won, completely, permanently. And that victory changed more than just your outcome. It changed me. Lawrence. I read Lawrence's letter 3 times. Him finally understanding not just that he'd lost, but why. Understanding that preparation had defeated manipulation. That strategic thinking had destroyed his scheme. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Lawrence had learned the lesson. That was enough. But we'd never have a relationship. Some bridges once burned stay burned. 11 years after Porter's sentencing, 10 years and 8 months after that morning, when Lawrence first tried to take my club. I was 86 years old when I sat in my living room reflecting on everything. The club was thriving under Sierra's management. The Morrison Defense Fund was helping over 1,000 people annually. My book was still selling, teaching people to prepare instead of defend. Renee and I had rebuilt a careful, honest relationship. Not what we'd had before, but something real, something based on truth. Lawrence had learned. Porter was dead. Kenneth's fraud had been exposed and punished. And I was still here, 86, still sharp, still strategic, still living independently because I'd prepared instead of defended when it mattered most. That morning 11 years ago, Lawrence told me to stop defending myself, to accept their plan, to surrender quietly. I agreed not to defend myself. Then I prepared instead. I gathered documentation. I built comprehensive evidence. I let them think their lies were working while I systematically destroyed the foundation of their scheme. That preparation changed everything, saved my club, protected my independence, exposed systematic fraud, sent exploiters to prison, created educational materials helping thousands, built legacy from attempted theft. I didn't defend myself, I prepared. And that difference, between emotional defense and strategic preparation, that determined everything. They thought telling me not to defend myself would neutralize me, would make me accept their authority, would make me surrender without fighting. They didn't understand that not defending wasn't surrendering. It was choosing my battlefield. It was gathering weapons. It was preparing for total victory instead of reacting to immediate attack. I didn't defend myself, I prepared. And that preparation changed everything. For me, For them. For thousands of people who learned from my example. That's the lesson. That's the principle. That's the power. When someone tells you not to defend yourself, they're trying to neutralize your resistance. Don't defend in that moment. Prepare systematically. Document comprehensively. Build overwhelming evidence. Then strike when you're ready, not when they're pushing. That's what I did. That's what worked. That's what I'm teaching others. Don't defend yourself. Prepare instead. And let that preparation change everything. 12 years after that morning, when Lawrence first tried to take my club, I was 87 years old when something happened that brought the story full circle in a way I never expected. A young woman named Maya Chen walked into the Blue Note Jazz Club one afternoon. 26 years old, nervous, carrying a folder. Sierra brought her to my office. "Aunt Dorothy, this young woman says she needs to talk to you, says it's about Kenneth Porter." Maya sat across from me, hands shaking. "Mrs. Morrison, my name is Maya Chen. Kenneth Porter was my uncle, my mother's brother." I felt my stomach tighten. "Why are you here?" "Because I need to tell you something. Something my family has been hiding for 12 years. Something you deserve to know." Over the next hour, Maya told me a story I hadn't expected. Kenneth Porter had a family, a wife, 2 children, parents, siblings, and when he went to prison, that family fractured. His wife divorced him immediately, took the kids, changed their last names. Mrs. Morrison, she wanted nothing to do with him, but my mother, Porter's sister, she stayed in contact, visited him in prison, tried to maintain connection. Why are you telling me this? Because 6 months ago, when Porter died, my mother found something in his belongings, a journal. He'd been writing in it for 6 years. "Mrs. Morrison, he wrote about you, about what happened, about what he learned. My mother read it. Then she gave it to me. She said I needed to decide whether to give it to you. I decided you should have it." Maya handed me the folder. Inside was a thick journal, handwritten, hundreds of pages. "I haven't read all of it," Maya said. "But Mrs. Morrison, Porter wrote about you constantly, about how you defeated him, about what that taught him, about how you changed everything he thought he understood about exploitation. Mrs. Morrison, I think you need to read this. Not for him, for you, because I think it might give you closure you don't even know you need." After Maya left, I sat alone in my office holding Porter's journal. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Didn't want to read the thoughts of a man who'd tried to exploit me, who'd built a career destroying elderly people's lives. But curiosity won. I opened the journal, started reading. The first entry was dated 2 weeks after Porter's conviction. "I've been sentenced to 12 years. I'll be 71 when I'm released, if I survive that long. I'm in federal prison because of Dorothy Morrison, because she was the first person in 5 years who saw through my scheme, who documented systematically, who prepared instead of reacting. I've been running variations of this scheme for 6 years. Dorothy Morrison is the 34th elderly person I've targeted. The first 33 believed my false analyses, sold their businesses. I collected my fees. I moved on to the next target. Dorothy Morrison was different. She didn't believe me. She didn't defend herself emotionally. She prepared strategically. While I thought I was manipulating her, she was documenting me. While I thought silence meant weakness, she was building overwhelming evidence. I underestimated her. That underestimation destroyed me, and now I have 12 years to understand why. I kept reading, entry after entry, Porter analyzing what had happened, breaking down his mistakes, understanding where his scheme had failed. The problem wasn't the scheme itself. It worked 33 times. The problem was assuming all elderly people are the same. Assuming age means automatic vulnerability. Assuming 75 years old means declining competence. Dorothy Morrison taught me that age can mean experience. That decades of business management create instincts I don't have. That someone who's run a jazz club for 32 years knows more about that business than a financial analyst who reviewed records for a week. I assumed expertise in financial analysis made me expert in her business. I was wrong. She was the expert. I was the amateur pretending to be professional. She knew her numbers. I created false numbers. When we collided, truth defeated lies. Experience defeated assumption. That's the lesson I'm learning in prison. That's what Dorothy Morrison taught me through consequences. The journal continued. Months of entries. Porter analyzing not just what happened with me, but his entire pattern. I've been thinking about the other 33. The ones who believed me, who sold their businesses, who regretted it later. They weren't weaker than Dorothy Morrison. They weren't less competent. They just didn't prepare. They reacted emotionally instead of responding strategically. They defended themselves by arguing instead of documenting. Dorothy Morrison didn't argue with my analysis. She didn't try to convince me I was wrong. She just gathered evidence proving I was wrong. Then she presented that evidence when it mattered, in court, with attorneys, with comprehensive documentation. That's genius. That's strategy. That's what I never anticipated. I targeted people who'd defend themselves emotionally, who'd get upset and argue, who'd try to convince me they were competent instead of proving it. Dorothy Morrison didn't defend. She prepared. And that preparation defeated manipulation that had worked 33 previous times. I read through months of Porter's reflections, about his scheme, about his victims, about what he'd learned from me. One entry, dated 3 years into his sentence, stood out. I've been contacted by 2 of my previous victims. They testified at Dorothy Morrison's case. They saw what she did, how she prepared, how she documented, how she won. They asked me, "Why didn't we see through you like Dorothy did?" I've been thinking about that question. The answer isn't simple, but I think it's this. Dorothy Morrison had something most of my victims didn't. Not better financial knowledge, not sharper cognition, not more resources. She had self-trust. She trusted her own judgment more than she trusted my expertise. When I told her the club was failing, she knew it wasn't. When I showed her false numbers, she knew her real numbers. When I pressured her to act quickly, she chose to act carefully. Most of my victims doubted themselves. When an expert told them they were failing, they believed the expert over their own knowledge. When I created urgency, they reacted to pressure instead of questioning it. Dorothy Morrison never doubted herself. That self-trust gave her confidence to prepare instead of defend, to document instead of react, to trust her knowledge over my claims. That's what I couldn't defeat. Not preparation, not documentation, self-trust, the foundation that made preparation possible. I spent 6 years exploiting self-doubt. Dorothy Morrison had none. That's why she won. That's why I'm here. I kept reading. The journal covered 6 years, Porter's entire incarceration until his death, hundreds of pages analyzing what had happened, what he'd learned, how Dorothy Morrison had changed his understanding of everything. The final entry was dated 2 weeks before he died. I'm 59 years old. I've been in prison for nearly 7 years. I'm not going to survive to release. I can feel my body failing, heart problems, stress, the weight of understanding what I did to people. I've spent 7 years thinking about Dorothy Morrison, about how she defeated me, about what that means. Here's what I've concluded. Dorothy Morrison didn't just defeat my scheme. She exposed a fundamental flaw in how I understood power. I thought power came from expertise, from professional credentials, from creating pressure and urgency. I thought controlling information and manufacturing crises gave me power over my targets. Dorothy Morrison showed me that real power comes from something else, from self-knowledge, from trusting your own judgment, from preparing systematically instead of reacting emotionally. She had less professional credentials than I did, but she had more power because she knew herself, knew her business, knew what was true, and she trusted that knowledge more than she trusted my manipulation. That self-trust, that's the power I couldn't defeat. That's what saved her. That's what destroyed me. If I could tell Dorothy Morrison anything now, it would be this. Thank you. Not for defeating me, for teaching me, for showing me through consequences what no one could have taught me through words. You showed me that power isn't manipulation. It's preparation. It's not pressure. It's patience. It's not controlling others, it's trusting yourself. I spent 6 years exploiting people. You spent 6 weeks preparing to defeat me. Your 6 weeks were more powerful than my 6 years. That's the lesson. That's what I'm dying understanding. Power is preparation. Power is self-trust. Power is strategic patience. You had it. I didn't. That difference determined everything. Kenneth Porter. I closed the journal, sat in silence for a long time, Porter's final reflections echoing in my mind. He'd spent 7 years understanding what I'd done, understanding why it worked, understanding the fundamental difference between manipulation and real power. He'd learned, too late to change his trajectory, too late to undo the harm he'd caused, but he'd learned. That meant something, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement that consequences had taught lessons words never could. The next day, I called Maya. I read the journal, all of it. Maya, thank you for bringing it to me. It gave me something I didn't know I needed. What's that? Confirmation that what I did wasn't just personally effective, it was fundamentally sound. Porter spent 7 years analyzing why his scheme failed with me. His conclusion was simple. I trusted myself more than I trusted his manipulation. That self-trust made preparation possible. That preparation defeated him. Maya, reading his analysis, confirmed what I've been teaching others. That self-trust is foundational. That preparation flows from it. That power comes from within, not from credentials or pressure. Mrs. Morrison, my uncle destroyed people's lives, including yours, or he tried to. Why does his journal matter to you? Because it proves that consequences teach, that people can learn even from their own destruction, that the lessons I forced Porter to face through prosecution, those lessons actually reached him. He spent 7 years understanding what he'd done wrong. That understanding didn't undo his harm, but it proved that consequences matter. That justice isn't just punishment, it's education through consequences. Maya, your uncle learned, too late to save himself, but he learned. That matters. 2 months after reading Porter's journal, I did something unexpected. I incorporated his insights into the Morrison Defense Fund's training materials. Kenneth Porter spent 6 years exploiting elderly people, I explained at a training session. He targeted 34 people. 33 believed his lies. 1, me, prepared instead of defending. Porter spent 7 years in prison analyzing why his scheme failed with me. His conclusion: I trusted my own judgment more than I trusted his expertise. That self-trust made preparation possible. I shared relevant excerpts from Porter's journal, not to humanize him, not to excuse him, but to show how predators think, how they identify vulnerability, how they exploit self-doubt. Porter wrote that he targeted people who doubted themselves, who believed experts over their own knowledge, who reacted emotionally instead of responding strategically. That's the vulnerability. That's what we protect against, not by becoming paranoid, by building self-trust, by trusting our knowledge, by preparing systematically when pressure comes. The training materials, incorporating Porter's insights, became our most effective educational tool. Because they showed exploitation from the predator's perspective, showed what predators looked for, showed what defeated them. Porter's attempt to exploit me, his analysis of why he failed, his 7 years of reflection, all of it became education protecting thousands. That was the ultimate irony. Porter built a career exploiting elderly people. His analysis of his own failure became the foundation for protecting elderly people. His predation became their protection. 1 year after reading Porter's journal, I was 88 years old when the Morrison Defense Fund celebrated its 7th anniversary. We'd helped over 2,000 people, prevented estimated exploitation totaling $31 million, prosecuted 26 exploiters using evidence we'd helped victims gather. At the anniversary event, I gave a speech reflecting on everything that had happened over 13 years. 13 years ago, my son-in-law tried to steal my jazz club. He told me I was failing. He told me to stop defending myself. He told me to accept his plan. I didn't defend myself. I prepared instead. That preparation saved everything I'd built. But the story didn't end with personal victory. It became education. It became systematic protection. It became a principle helping thousands. The principle is simple. Don't defend yourself. Prepare instead. When someone attacks you, when they claim you're failing, when they pressure you to act quickly, when they tell you to stop resisting, don't defend emotionally. Prepare strategically. Document everything. Gather evidence. Build comprehensive proof. Trust your own judgment. Respond when you're ready, not when they're pushing. That's what defeated exploitation in my case. That's what's defeated it in 2,000 subsequent cases. That's what works. Not because it's complicated, because it's foundational, because it transforms how we think about protection. We move from reactive defense to strategic preparation, from emotional argument to documented evidence, from doubting ourselves to trusting our knowledge. That transformation, that's the power. That's what predators can't defeat. That's what I'm teaching. That's what this fund exists to support. 13 years ago, I didn't just save my club. I discovered a principle. That principle has saved thousands. Will save thousands more. We'll keep saving people as long as we teach it. Don't defend yourself. Prepare instead. Trust yourself. Document everything. Respond strategically. That's power. That's protection. That's what changed everything. After the speech, a young man approached me, early 30s, carrying a notebook. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Jeremy Foster. I'm a law student writing my thesis on elder financial exploitation. Your case is my primary example. Mrs. Morrison, you pioneered a defensive strategy that's now being taught in elder law courses. Did you know that? No, what are they teaching? The Morrison method. That's what professors are calling it. Strategic preparation instead of emotional defense. Comprehensive documentation. Trusting self-knowledge over external pressure. Mrs. Morrison, you didn't just protect yourself. You created a methodology, a systematic approach to defeating exploitation. Law students are learning it. Elder law attorneys are implementing it. You've changed legal practice in this field. I didn't create a method. I just protected myself. You created a replicable approach. That's method. Mrs. Morrison, before your case, elder financial exploitation defense was primarily reactive. Fighting guardianship petitions after they were filed, arguing competence after it was questioned. You showed something different. Proactive preparation, building evidence before conflict escalates, establishing competence comprehensively. That's systematic. That's methodology. That's what's being taught. I thought about that, about my personal response to Lawrence's attack becoming systematic methodology, about protecting myself becoming education for thousands. About one person's strategic thinking becoming widespread practice. That was legacy, not just victory, transformation, changing how an entire field approached protection. 2 years after reading Porter's journal, Renee had been consistently present for 11 years. She'd proven herself repeatedly. She'd chosen truth over comfort consistently. She'd supported without asking for anything. One afternoon, she asked me something I'd been expecting. Mom, I'm 59 now. You're 89. We don't have unlimited time. Is there anything you need to tell me? Anything you want to say while we can still say it? I thought about that question, about end-of-life conversations, about what needed saying. Renee, I need you to know I'm proud of you, not for anything you achieved professionally, for how you rebuilt yourself. You chose wrong 13 years ago. You believed Lawrence's lies. You supported exploitation. But Renee, you recognized the mistake. You changed direction. You spent 11 years proving you'd learned. That's character. That's what I'm proud of. Thank you. Mom, I need to tell you something too, something I've been carrying. When Lawrence first told me about his plan to pressure you to sell the club, I had doubts. I knew it felt wrong. But I suppressed those doubts because I wanted to believe my husband. Mom, I knew. Somewhere deep, I knew he was manipulating the situation. I just didn't trust that knowledge. That's what I regret most. Not that I believed him initially, that I doubted myself, that I didn't trust my own instincts. That's the vulnerability Porter wrote about, doubting your own judgment, trusting external experts over internal knowledge. Renee, that's what predators exploit. That's what Lawrence exploited in you. How do I make sure I never do that again? By remembering this, by remembering what doubting yourself cost, by trusting your instincts next time. Renee, you have good judgment. You proved it over 11 years, trust that. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't suppress instincts. Listen to them. I will. Mom, thank you for giving me 11 years to prove I'd learned. Thank you for not giving up on me. You gave yourself those 11 years. You did the work. I just provided the opportunity. Renee, you rebuilt yourself. That's your accomplishment, not mine. 3 years after reading Porter's journal, 14 years after Lawrence's initial attack, I was 90 years old when something extraordinary happened. The Morrison Defense Fund received a $5 million donation from an anonymous donor, the largest single gift in the fund's history, with a note, "For Dorothy Morrison, who taught us that preparation is power. Use this to help more people prepare instead of defend." We never identified the donor, but the gift transformed the fund. We expanded to 15 states, hired full-time staff, created comprehensive training programs, helped over 5,000 people that year alone. At 90, I was still actively involved, still teaching, still consulting on complex cases, still proving that age doesn't mean stopping. It means continuing with experience as your advantage. Sierra, now running the Blue Note Jazz Club successfully for 6 years, approached me one afternoon. "Aunt Dorothy, I've been thinking. The club's 45th anniversary is next year. I want to do something special, something honoring what you built, what you protected, what this place represents." "What are you thinking?" "A documentary about you, about the club, about what happened with Lawrence and Porter, about the Morrison Defense Fund, about everything you've taught people. Aunt Dorothy, your story isn't just personal history, it's educational material, it's inspiration, it should be preserved, shared, used to teach future generations." Over the following year, filmmakers interviewed me extensively, documented the club, interviewed Marcus, Gloria, Dr. Freeman, Renee, Sierra, Maya Chen, reviewed court records, built comprehensive documentation of everything that had happened. The documentary premiered at the club's 45th anniversary. Prepared, not defeated, the Dorothy Morrison story. It showed everything: Lawrence's attack, my preparation, Porter's scheme, the trials, the victories, the Morrison Defense Fund, the methodology, the thousands helped, the legacy built. At the premiere, I watched my own story unfold on screen, saw myself at 75 defending my club, saw the evidence, saw the victories, saw the consequences for exploiters, saw the transformation of personal battle into systematic protection. After the screening, a woman in her 60s approached me. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Leslie Grant. I was one of Kenneth Porter's victims, the restaurant owner. I testified at his trial. I've spent 14 years regretting that I believed his lies, that I sold my business. Mrs. Morrison, watching this documentary, I finally understood something. I didn't fail. I just didn't know what you knew. I didn't have the tools you had. That's not weakness. That's lack of information. Thank you for turning your information into education, for making sure future victims have tools I didn't have. Leslie, you were exploited. That's not your failure, that's Porter's crime." I know that now, but Mrs. Morrison, for 14 years I blamed myself, thought I was stupid, thought I should have seen through him. This documentary taught me you weren't smarter than me, you were more informed. You knew to prepare instead of defend. That's education, not intelligence. Mrs. Morrison, you're teaching people what to do. That's what I needed 14 years ago. Thank you for making sure others have it. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.